All right, so um, I'm going to see if this video will upload. Hopefully, it will. I went ahead and deleted a video. I reserve the right to re-upload that video at a future point. It's unfortunate. I got a couple of thumbs up, and I think it probably got reported. I didn't show anything on screen. I didn't say any swear words. I did not suggest anything of any particular ill will or negative nature. I was simply commenting on something that is already final, which is the end of a person's life. Lots of people comment on the end of a person's life all over the place. Lots of people who have done terrible things in their lives then perish in terrible ways, and people go, well, all's well that ends well. So I even took that particular video and made it adults only and age restricted. So there was no way that underage people would even be around it unless they were skirting the rules. And basically, I've been unable to upload using this device, and I'll show you here. Maybe it's changed by now since I've deleted that, but I had this really cool video. Yeah, see, there's that next button should be blue, and it's not. If you have something that you are trying to edit and it is, you haven't made a change to it, you just select the edit option, that happens. But then when you make a change, that thing pops up blue. So it's not letting me do that. My only guess is that it has got to be that one video. I went ahead and deleted it. We'll see within 24 hours what happens. The funny thing is, the device I'm recording on at the moment, which is not my phone, obviously, has the option for the blue button to upload. So we're going to see what happens with this. I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and play this other video for it as well. Let me pull up the original. And I will just run this for you. Good morning. It is 12:48 p.m. Wednesday, November 10th, 2021. Took a pause from commentary on the high-profile murder trial. I woke up late, saw the headlines of some of what had transpired, and was like, okay, well, we'll get to that in a moment. It's reflected on itself. Where the video I'm watching is at, the commentators are having some discussion about circumstances of today's events while the court is on a 10-minute break ordered by the judge because the defendant took the stand and began to testify in his own defense. And when they approached the situation that became his first encounter and the first shots fired, he broke down crying and they had to take a break. And unfortunately, it's not wise to put a defendant on the stand, no matter how emotional. As the host of the stream that I'm watching has mentioned, that there are countless people who are serving life in prison or got the death penalty that broke down crying on the stand in their own defense, attempting to emotionally charge the jury, or that they were honest and that they were really telling the truth, but they nonetheless got convicted. So they say a man who represents himself has a fool for a client, and the only other major rule of anything is never testify to your own defense. Let your lawyer do that. Basically, you have a Fifth Amendment right to not testify against yourself. And once you waive that to testify, there is no closing that door. It is a Pandora's box of questions. That is what I'm going to be learning about later today. In the meantime, I wanted to take a break and be a little more positive. I don't know if you know this about me. The words "I love you" come out of my mouth with earnest genuineness, an average of about 100 times a day. And you think, bruh, how? It's real simple. I have 6 cats. There's two things you do with a cat. You gain their trust, you give them a name. When you give them a name, you name them repeatedly, and not only do they come to recognize it, but without naming them, they become more feral. So it's important every time you see one of the kitty cats around the house, you say, "Hi, cat name." Or they come nuzzle up, "Oh, I love you too, cat name." To all 6 cats, right? And I figure it's something like 10 to 15 times a day that I interact with each of my cats. So I would say it is safe that on an average, I could say that about 100 times a day, every single day, that expression with realness comes from me. I'm not sure why the universe doesn't seem to pick up on this fact. Everyone says, "Oh yeah, the positivity you put out and everything else." Sure. To a minimal effect, it does, because if I head to town or anywhere else, some people are generally pleasant, but as far as the amount of love that I put out versus the amount of love that I receive from anywhere else out in the world, I wouldn't say it's proportionate. But yeah, that's the first thing. The occurrence, I was like, wow, I never even thought about that. But yeah, it's like, people ask, like, how many times a day do you say no? Have you tried saying yes more? And it's another thing that you should think of is, how often do you say I love you and mean it? Well, I say it about 100 times a day, and I mean it every single time. So that brings me to I don't want to say a tangent. It is related to the expression. If you have kids, if you have grandkids, if you have anyone who is a ward in your care, one of the best ways to avoid losing a family member to any.
Sorry, I was repositioning and I bumped the pause.
Kind of, abduction, kidnapping, trafficking, anything like that, is, of course, you got rules like, don't talk to strangers, don't take candy from strangers, somebody's got a van, somebody makes an offer, it's, buddy system, don't go anywhere alone, stuff like that. And you may have heard where, the hypothetical they'll tell kids about in school is, yeah, well, if somebody shows up at school and says, "Hey, your parents were in a car accident and they told me to take you to the hospital," that you should have a code word with your parents so that, you can, if the person is legit, they'll know the code word. If the code word is, let's find something out of the ordinary here. It could be something where it's like, okay, well, what's the code word? And they say, oh, the code word is Old Spice, and that was what you agreed to. You say, oh, okay, cool. So I guess I better. Now it's possible that there's other somebody can guess something like that, right? So let me tell you about, and I'm not saying that this guaranteed that I was never abducted as a kid. Maybe nobody tried, who knows? But I know that we had, and this is the funny part. As a kid, prior to my, how should I put it, interruption around age 8 or 9, I already had a difficult time expressing verbal affection. I was never big for hugs and kisses. And as far as saying I love you was never something I was comfortable with. After about age 8 or 9, it became even more difficult. But what we did have, and this is something that I put into great use with a family with stepkids for a decade basically, that there are going to be times when it's not appropriate or comfortable to express affection, when nonetheless a ward in your care, whether it's a stepchild, an adoptee, a foster child, your actual child, still needs to be made aware that they are loved, even if they're not comfortable with the expression. What my parents had figured out was that we would use a secret word that was the thing that we would say to each other as a code word for I love you. And most of the time it was just in the house. We didn't really use it out in public or anything. If it was more of a little whisper, or we'd make a joke where that word was in it and there's a little wink or something with it. But it was never publicly spoken about in groups of people, because obviously there's what the legal commentators on this trial that I'm watching would refer to as boomer security. It's, well, we just have them meet somewhere else together, and then we put them on a bus and we bus them in. And then when they're done, they bus back to that location because their cars are there. Well, somebody can follow the bus. Somebody got a picture of the jury getting on or off the bus, right? So we had this word around the house, and all it was the word soup. That was it. But we didn't say it publicly in the use of the term. In the house, it was the expression for I love you. Going to bed, going to work, going to school, anytime we would depart. And what that meant was, if somebody was to come up and say, hey, your folks were in an accident, I'd say, okay, what's the word? Real simple, right? And you don't forget the word that you use all the time to say I love you to someone. Even if it's a way that you're not triggering yourself, but you're still able. And like I said, I put this to great use. We had, ways and expressions and things that were just kind of it would be explained the one time, hey, just so you know, if I'm saying that, this is what I'm saying. And from there on out, then it's like, if they're not comfortable with physical contact, I don't want to make a hug and make somebody feel awkward. Okay, cool. We moved to dap. I've got stepkids at the time. Their dad's alive and in the picture. I'm not trying to undermine him. That's, a healthy relationship with biological parents is essential if possible. So if there's a step parent present, the best thing to do is to not always be in the way. You have your influences, and if they live with you, then there's house rules and things like that. But you don't want to alienate them against you either. So if they're not comfortable with you telling them that you love them directly, you can say, I just want to tell you this one time that is the case, and any other time I will say this expression instead, and you just know what I mean, and that way it's not awkward. All right, good. And it works. It works very well, because kids need to know that they're loved. Same thing with my fur babies. When you name them, when you learn the language, there's the winks, the slow blinks, the look away and slightly close your eyes. That's cat way of they call it a demure when you're like, oh. But with cats, this is an affection thing. So yeah, like I said, it's I encourage everyone not just to look at how many times you say no. Is there a way to decline something without saying no? Is there a way to be more affirmative? Because you really do attract what you put out into the world. The problem is I would have to go around telling everybody I love them all the time for like a week straight in order for that kind of love to return back to me from the world. As it is here in my little insular fortress of solitude plus cats, in here it's nothing but love. But it's like, that's why this is my fortress of solitude, is that I sit in here and I tell these furry little pieces of artwork that are my babies how much I love them all the time, and they tell me how much they love me all the time too. So there is that. I at least have that as far as my personal health goes, but as far as what I'm able to put into the world, that's the downside to the isolation and the remoteness, is that the rest of the world doesn't seem to pick up on these vibrations this way. Which is interesting if you're studying the effect itself as how that might work, or whether or not it's superstition. Nevertheless, no less than 60, and usually something closer to 100, because I don't always just say it once. Sometimes I'll say it a couple times. Sometimes I will see a cat and say it, and see the next cat and say it, see the next cat and say it, and then the one that I've just said it to walks back in the room, I'll say it again. It's not that I'm literally constantly saying it to them. But when they come up and nuzzle me, if they've gone out and done something, they come back in and they jump on my lap. Every single time. And I mean it every single time. Have you ever done a count of that? How many times do you say no in a day? How many times do you say yes in a day? How many times do you genuinely tell someone that you love them in a day? Sometime, just for the heck of it, take a count. Find out. How many times do you say I love you in a day? Good morning.
So, now that we got that, we are going to find out if going to be able to upload. The thing that I find funny about this is that not only am I attempting to publish something positive and uplifting here, not only did I not actually do anything wrong in the previous video, but the device I'm recording this video on is the device on which I recorded the video and uploaded from which that I believe to be the problem, although I've received no emails from YouTube. So we're going to see if this one will upload. And the funny thing is it feels like I'm not able to upload because of that video. So like I said, I went ahead and deleted it, but this one was allowing me to upload the whole time. So I'm going to go ahead and let this one go and see if it lets it go up, and we'll find out what tomorrow brings as far as this other device and its ability to be my primary YouTube camera. Have a good evening.